and deprioritize. Think.
Welcome to Odibet, the ultimate destination for sports betting and thrilling casino games.
It's time to level up your game. Odibet. Bet smart, win big, play with confidence. Unbeatable odds, non-stop action, fast payouts. And it's all safe, secure, and just a click away. What do you bet? Bet smart, win big, play with confidence. What do you bet?
.26 degrees right here in the nation's capital. Humidity is at 24% and visibility is at 17 kilometers. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayla Megwa.
I'm wondering what kind of view you need to see 17 kilometers ahead, but hey, whatever works for you. In Lagos,
it's important to know the visibility because I know you don't have visibility where you are. It's foggy where you are.
Visibility.
So I tried to rub it in a little bit. Let's annoy you. What's the visibility like in Lagos this morning, Ayo?
We can see our front. That's enough. All right, good morning and welcome.
See our front.
Well, it's the 29th day in the month of January 2025. Welcome to the show. I'm Ayo Makinde. Well, I understand you're taking us up north today, Kayla.
Absolutely. Part of our conversation really has to do a lot of things happening up north, especially in this particular state. We'll bring you Borno as our skyline this morning. One of the places in this country that makes us just worry, you know. An insurgency that's lasted too long, way too long. Makes you wonder if the solutions are not being suppressed on purpose in many ways, and worried about the lives of the people in this area. Ayo, you know, if you grew up in northern Nigeria, you would not, if you didn't grow up in northern Nigeria rather, you wouldn't understand how terrible this insurgency is and what it's done to the people of northern Nigeria. You see this Maiduguri? It used to be a place where lecturers used to hang out a lot. Lecturers from across the country used to go to Maiduguri and they would go hiking. See all those Sambisa forests, all those places? There were hiking trails when we were kids. And it was such a peaceful town because Borno is a school town, you know, it's a university town. So it was one of those places where you had a lot of intellectuals. It was a very calm city. And then you would expect decency, you expected well behavior, you expected discipline because of the quality of people that lived in Maiduguri all those years. And then this insurgency came and the place became topsy-turvy. The idea that people cannot farm in a place where people were predominantly farmers, they can't go to the farms. In a place where they were basically trying to live demure lives and raise children and have friendly environments and keep to their old traditions, you know, all of that being tossed around because of an insurgency that's in many ways, many people believe we refuse to solve for whatever reason. It'll be our conversation earlier, but you know, just so we can have a view of the beautiful city of Maiduguri, that on your screen is actually the city center in Maiduguri. And Ayo, what are your thoughts? When I think about Maiduguri, it makes me sad. But what are your thoughts, Ayo?
Enjoy this beautiful view. I always say, let's begin this day on a pleasant and joyful note. On the note upon which Morning Brief ended this morning is that it's a celebratory one of that lecturer in the University of Ife, in the Obafemi Awolowo University, beg your pardon. But the good thing that I like about Maiduguri is that it is not what people would think that Maiduguri is. It's not a brown city. It's not all brown and hamlets. Look at it. This is development. Oh, by the way, let me do something you usually do on this program, Kayla. You will tell us the backstory to the names of the towns. Well, I found a research that says Maiduguri is a name coined from the combination of two Kanuri language words, namely May and Duri. May is a word in Kanuri that means king, and Duri is referring to the plural of 1,000. So literally, Maiduguri is May plus Duri means 1,000 kings. Thus, Maiduguri is a land of the 1,000 kings. That's my takeaway this morning from this beautiful, lush city. So if we find, as you say, a number of people wanting to assert themselves, maybe it's not too far from the origin of the name of the city. However, there can only be one king in the city. Can we just establish that and make progress and let everybody know that we can't have two captains in one ship and have peace? But in the meantime, and let's look at it, all the vehicles are going so smoothly. It's just one driver for each of those vehicles. So imagine that we have two steering wheels and two drivers in each of those vehicles. Trust me, we will not have Maiduguri as beautiful as what we are seeing right now. Kayla, that is my takeaway this morning of this beautiful city. And the long shot that we saw, it's certainly something to wake up to every morning. Let's put it in slow motion. And you'll be fine. Trust me, you'll be fine.
I mean, that's such a deep thing to think about, Ayo, the idea of multiple drivers. Can any progress be made if people don't work together? I mean, it's a beautiful city, such nostalgia. Good morning, Maiduguri, and thank you for sharing your city with us this morning. Well, our security conversation will be the main topic today. We're going to be looking at insecurity and some of the accusations that have been made when it comes to insecurity in the country. Who's to blame? Who's pulling what strings? We'll get to that shortly. For a short break, stay with us.
In an illegal mining site, cut away gold, return to Sediti, and then on the way to airport, bam, take them out of the country. This is happening. So I agree with you, but my position is that we shouldn't, as senators, be lamenting. As senators, we should fix the problem. We should tell the executive, you must deploy exactly the same force that you deploy against illegal oil bunkering. That same force should be deployed to deal with criminals who are when I say criminal, it can be a retired general, it can be a retired permanent secretary, it can be a retired trade unionist or a retired labor leader. Whoever is involved, they should be dealt with. Let Nigeria see that we are not condoning this. We are not lamenting what is going on. You know, when you have a country of people who are above the law because they are supposed to have served the country, they have retired and now they become the real barons, we should recommend steep penalties, and through the leadership of the Senate and the National Assembly, draw President's attention that he has to find the political will to deal decisively with criminals that are cutting away our precious stones and other precious solid minerals.
Very interesting allegations that are made by Adams Oshomole. Well, it's raised a lot of questions, really. You know, when accusations like these are made, no one's name is being called, or no one is actually being pulled out or put in the center stage. So, when you make accusations like this, what next? What's expected to happen? And is there any truth to what he's saying? Could there be people who have been part of our military, who are part of this problem and fueling it? What is going on? And to help us understand what's going on, we have two guests this morning. I'm going to start off with the man in the studio here with me, lawyer and national security expert, Mr. Dr. Charles Omole. Thank you so much for being with us. He's also the Director General of the Institute for Police and Security Policy Research, IPSPR. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And joining us via Zoom, security expert and CEO of Bell Protocol, Alfred Dilichukwu. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you having me on the program.
I think we're going to start with you, Mr. Dilichukwu. When you listen to what Adams Oshomole is saying, and then you juxtapose it with a lot of the security challenges that we've seen in parts of the country, especially in places like Borno, in recent times, in Zamfara, Katsina, Niger. When you hear these situations and you put it next to what Adams Oshomole is saying, what are your thoughts as an expert in this field?
Yeah, thank you very much. First, let me also, as my tradition is, appreciate our men of the Nigerian Army and other security agencies who have devoted their time and their lives to fight and secure our peace and our space. I just want to say thank you for what you are doing for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On what is trending, I very well know that Senator Adams Oshomole is a very strong stakeholder in Nigeria today. Not just that he was a former Labour leader, he also was a former political governor of Edo State. And of course, he's been the chairman of the ruling party, the APC. So being a senator is just another layer to his call to national service. And I consider his statement on the floor of the Senate as very germane. He couldn't have walked from nowhere to make those statements. And they are not unknown to those who should know. The Department of State, which is the DSS, have very clearly documented information and intelligence on activities of treasure harvesters, I might call them. And it's worrisome because in order to secure their space, they employ some very unethical, non-state actor approach to perpetrate this. Unfortunately, because of their exposure to kinetic activities, they deploy some of these methods in order to be able to evade the arms of the law. So it's worrisome. And I would want to say that this is very important, coming at this particular time, that our economy and our national safety has almost been brought to zero. It's an important information that the relevant authorities should analyze, and we expect that decisive action should be taken to address the issues raised by Senator Adams Oshomole.
I'm going to come back to Dr. Charles Omole here in the studio. I mean, decisive action. Is it possible to take decisive action on that sort of accusation that he's made, seeing as nothing was actually pinpointed? No one was called out. He just mentioned it. So it's in many ways, it feels like virtue signaling, isn't it? Oh, they are bad. The judiciary is bad, but you didn't call out anyone. So you've pointed out a problem, but it's not a problem that can be solved as it were.
Well, thank you. I think what the senator said is correct in the sense that the kind of resources needed to mine and excavate and then, cut away these minerals require some level of connivance with our security services. There's no doubt about that. But is it only retired generals? No. Yeah, some of them are probably retired generals, but most of them are politicians that we know. And I think it's beginning to get depressing, having this conversation in relation to the mining, in relation to, theft of, oil in the Niger Delta, in relation to all kind of myriads of security challenges we have. The truth is, yes, there is a solution. But is there a will to actually implement that solution? That actually is a challenge that I think we have. And the what I call the economy of insecurity is such that once it persists for a while, then there are different beneficiaries along the way to perpetuate that insecurity. So trying to get them to, for example, just a typical example, part of the report we had in those days in the, 4, 5, 6 years ago when kidnapping was a major deal, for example, was that many of the kidnappers, the people who actually deliver the ransom to the kidnappers, are given a percentage by the kidnappers. So, okay, so you've come to deliver the 100 million we asked for, okay, here's your portion. The question is, you got that from a kidnapper, you'll be praying for more kidnapping. So an industry kind of evolves around insecurity, and then you have so many people who have, from people at the bottom to the people at the top, who all have benefits from insecurity, and that's what's perpetuating it. But is there a solution? There are solutions.
At this rate, at this point, it's been on for a very long time, Dr. Mole. This value chain, people, I don't want people to underestimate what the value chain means. It means that some people have made a livelihood out of this. They have built their fortune.
That's correct.
On this. So you're going to take food from his mouth.
Well, that's why it's a much more difficult thing to deal with. The current minister of mines, of mineral resources, what's his name? I'm trying to remember his name. He was with the Villa before.
Yeah.
After the explosion that happened in Ibadan, some explosive stuff in a house, he came out. These are things we've known all along, but he came out publicly then to say that he's been threatened, as minister, that's Delalake.
Yes.
That was being threatened. Now, that's a challenge, we have here. And I guess the question has to be, every public official need to ask themselves the question, is Nigeria worth dying for? That is a question, because if you are challenging this vested interest, which, by the way, they're all over the place, you have to be ready to pay the ultimate price. And if a minister in charge of the mineral resources is being threatened, and you didn't go further to say, okay, what's the implication of that being threatened mean? Does that mean he has now calmed down on some things? Does that mean he has, decided not to do some things? He didn't say. But the truth is, yes, we know he's been threatened, and that is for anybody else that's involved with trying to solve a sort of insecurity. So it has to come right from the top. The solutions are there, and it's kind of, sometimes I'm sounding like a broken record, because you keep coming to studios, you keep saying the same thing
over and over
again, and nothing is being done.
Is it on purpose, do you think?
Of course it's on purpose.
On whose part? Because I'm listening to Mr. Senator Adams Oshiomhole, and he's talking about all the presidency. We need, as lawmakers, we need to push for these actions that are necessary to stop this, have to be pushed for by us. At whose table? It's not the president. It's not this same president that says security is very important to him. Our biggest part of the budget went to security. What else can he do? What should he do that he's not doing? And what is this political will that we're not hearing about?
Okay. Now, there are countries on earth that do not have military. But there's no country on earth that do not have police. And I think part of the challenge we've had is the encroachment of the military in what I call policing duties, both in terms of the public and private statements of the heads of our military services. They've all said that, look, we are doing too much of policing work. We don't want to be doing police work. But the problem is, it is the encroachment into policing duties that have made it easier for them to have massive increase in funding over the last 10 years. So on one hand, they will publicly say, we don't want to do policing duties, but when they go to the president for all this special intervention fund and additional funding, they cite the fact that, look, Mr. President, we're in 30 states, we're in 27 states, we're in 33 states, so we need money for all this. So on one hand, they claim they don't want to do policing duty, but on the other hand, doing policing duty is a cash cow for the military. Because think about it, if our military focuses purely on what we call external aggression, their funding wouldn't be as high as it is today. So the failure we are seeing here comes back to the same thing: poor funding of the police. The police are the ones that actually can get this job done. As much as our guys, our boys and girls in uniform in the military are doing their best, they are not trained to keep peace in areas. That is the job of the police. And right now, there's no synergy between the two.
Mr. Alfred Ononugu, I want to be able to look at your background, Mr. Alfred. Forensic investigator, criminal intelligence specialist, fellow of the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria. Is there any fraud going on here? And from your experience in the value chain bit of this insurgency, where are we not looking at? What are we ignoring?
Well, I think we must take it a little back. Often we've said that poverty in Nigeria has been weaponized. And if you look at the psychology of crime, most people who got into crime often were exposed to duress. They were exposed to very frustrating circumstances. And the idea of getting involved in processes that compromises the law becomes an option. And this informs also how individuals who are admitted into our establishments are recruited. They are coming from the same, system where people's mindset has been tuned or exposed to breaches that have no consequences. So people are getting involved in the system, whether they're the political class, the establishment, the security establishments or agencies. We are products of the same society. So when you have a situation like this, the commercial or the transactional, perspective becomes the priority. So a lot of the times we are not service driven, we are not patriotic driven, and that is the core of the real issue we have here. For a nation whose people love their place, their country, we could have seen more if that was the drive, patriotism. Now with those values completely eroded, people are occupying spaces, most often not on merit, and then the options of sustaining the system that produced you becomes a priority. Having said that, we need to go back to deal with basic things. Our value chains, they are not working. There should be strong investment in our national orientation system and our education system. We must gain back the people. Then we also must produce leadership that are accountable, credible and accountable. We must re-establish a credible process that produces credible leaders. Now, when we get this sorted out, the question of people who have served, for instance, in the military that have been alleged of colluding with bandits or facilitating banditry in the name of doing business will completely be checkmated. So we need to address the value chain. For someone that has seen Nigeria, spent 30-something years of his entire life, or let me just say 35 years of his youthful life, to build a nation he should be proud of, a nation he can pass on to his children and children's children. Getting involved in such unimaginable crime should be out of the question. So we have these value issues dealing with us. We also have the dishonesty of the political class. They help these systems to get media or public attention. And then behind the system, they compromise the very subjects that they seem to have used as a public platform to gain acceptance and popularity. So these are so many disjointed, issues affecting us. Do we have the men to do this job? Yes, but they're often pushed to the background. If you don't join the transactional team, you are totally eliminated because you could become a threat to the activities of those who are benefiting. Like many people have also said, a lot of people are benefiting from the insecurity. And that's why it's not abating. It's become weaponized. It's become a commercial or transactional platform. And you see too many rich people, billionaires in Nigeria, that have no means of sustainability. You cannot trace their wealth to specific productive activities they do in the country. You don't see it reflect in the tax they pay to the federal government of Nigeria or to the states where they operate. How come they are so rich and our states are so poor? How come they have so much wealth and there's no industry attached to their activities and their wealth? So these are so many issues, and like Dr. Charles said, the police should be reinvented, and I choose my word purposefully.
Yeah.
If we have to reinvent the police, we must see that a police system that is well managed, well taken care of, whose welfares are guaranteed, where their work speaks for the job they do, should be the order of the day. What we call police today are jobbers, people who barely earn a decent living, policemen who can't even afford school fees for their children, who can't even afford decent accommodation. When you go to some of our police formations and see the barracks, the quality of life they are living, I don't know how you expect these men to have the morale to engage sophisticated crimes that we are seeing in our society today. So we need to look at the welfare of the police. We need to
I want to come back to Dr. Mole on that point, because I don't want to miss that point. I've heard this before. We've heard this before. We did a documentary in channels about the quality of life of the police. We've heard this before. The value chain conversation, we've heard it before. We did a story about when we went to Borno, and all the hotels were booked, and they are booked for years, which means that someone is projecting that this problem is going to be here for a very long time. We've heard this before. We've heard that the police, the military shouldn't be doing police work. We've heard about all of these collusions. We've heard that they are sponsors, from government to the political class to the military, those serving, those former. We've heard all of these things before, but nothing. We're still here in 2025, January, discussing the same things that I know that Dr. Mole has been talking about for years. I know that Mr. Alfred has been talking about for a very long time. There are security agents that release monthly reports. What's going on?
Well, I think the challenge is that a simple word for it is state capture. When you have these same people who have built their wealth based on these corrupt practices, they are the ones that also bankroll the elections of many of the politicians. The question becomes state capture, because you can't, in quote, take decisions that will hamper my interest. I bankrolled your election. So that perpetuates that cycle. But the truth is, if insecurity in Nigeria is to be brought to the minimum in the next 6 months, the strategy is there. It can be done.
It can.
Oh yes, it can be done. It's not rocket science. But the problem is the decisions will not be taken, are not being taken to allow that to happen. The wrong people are being put in positions. And by the way, I mean the wrong people here, I'm not talking necessarily of the technical positions. Technical position, what I call the professional, either in terms of IGP, those are professionals. In terms of Chief of Army Staff, those are professionals. Those are not the people I'm talking about here. I'm talking of their political appointees who oversee them. That's where the problem is.
Okay.
You know, so we have a situation, therefore, where you have people who don't know their left from their right, being put in these specific areas. I would have thought when this administration started, the president would have said, okay, these are our problem: economy, security. You know, what are the what are the key areas, and then in those areas, appoint only technocrats. It could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ministries that he considers as key to the success of his administration.
Help me understand it.
Appoint technocrats.
What particular ministries do we need these technocrats in, or MDs, or where do we need them? Give me an example.
Example is Minister of Police Affairs.
Okay.
For example,
you need a technocrat.
You need a technocrat there, not a politician.
Okay.
If Minister of Defense, you need technocrats there, not politicians. You know, ministries that are core, even with all due respect, even the Ministry of Mine, like I was talking about, you know, everybody knows Antecedents as a journalist. Now, does that mean he can't do the job? No, I'm not saying he can't do the job. I'm merely saying that there is something technocrat brings to it. There is a wealth of history, an antecedent they bring to such jobs that make it easier rather than somebody learning afresh on the job. So there are certain key ministries I would have thought the president will say, okay, this one, politicians, please move out. You can get other ministries, but this one, I want people that are renowned in these areas.
I think the thinking,
but that's not the case.
For at least for defense, the thinking when they put the former Jigawa state governor and put the former Zamfara state governor in as minister and minister of state in the Ministry of Defense, I think in their minds, I guess, I think this especially the Minister of State for Defense, that they had to deal with insecurity. Bello Matawale famously during his time did the no-fly zone. They started PAGMI, you know, trying to see what they can do to stop illegal mining in those places, and then, you know, thinking that wealth of knowledge is what will be brought to the table.
If you want to set up a new restaurant, do you go and appoint somebody who is a regular customer in a restaurant that eats at the restaurant every day, or do you get somebody who has run your restaurant before? So because it's had to do with insecurity, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, this is a personal attack, please understand that. If we need to move on in this country, we need to wake up and smell the coffee. There are certain areas that we need technical expertise to deal with. You know, one thing in public service generally, globally, it's not just a Nigerian phenomenon, is the fact that if you are dealing with people in public service are dealing with people they know do not have the technical knowledge they do, it's very easy to run rings around you, very easy. For the other bodies who have dealings with civil servants, they can run rings around you very easily if they see you don't understand technically the details, the nuances of what they are dealing with. And that's why you need somebody who can, no, we're not doing it that way, this is how we are doing it. So for you to say that to, in quote, a civil servant, you must know what it is that you're talking about. So that's what I'm saying, that certain areas we need, the solutions are there. This is January. By June, July this year, we can bring insecurity down in this country by 80–90%. It's possible. It's not rocket science.
Just by putting technocrats.
No. By implementing certain strategies.
Okay.
But I'm saying those strategies can better be sustained when technocrats are there. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I mean,
So with the strategies that are necessary, if the people who can man those strategies are put in that 6 to 8 months, it can be done.
even less than that. I mean, when we say these things, it looks as though we are just showboating, just trying to say, because I hear people say things like, oh, so countries spend this much time dealing with insecurity, we've only been 15, 20, 30, 20 years. The question is, the fact that those countries have spent all those years means we should be able to conquer it faster, because templates are already there. Because somebody has spent 20 years doing something, doesn't mean we can fix that same thing in 2 years. And that is what we are not seeing here, because we are going around in circles. We need technocrats who know what they are doing, to man key ministries. We need those strategies implemented by the president. I mean, the president, it's a body language of president that will make a difference here. If the president says, okay, all of you give me your letter of resignation in advance. If in 8 months you've not achieved X, Y, I will activate those resignation. Trust me, you will see a difference.
What about this value chain? We had Mr. Alfred talk about it as well. How do you stop people from benefiting from something that affects us adversely? It's a strange dynamic in my head. It's the same thing we look at when we think about kidnapping and banditry and things like that. If someone is making a lot of money, if people, like you said, with the ransom payments,
okay,
if we're making a lot of money from it, how will you stop it? How will I allow you to stop it? I will finish you. How will you stop it?
Now that you mentioned ransom payment, a story comes to mind. The Kaduna rail kidnapping that happened a couple of years back. One of the people kidnapped is a junior brother of a good friend of mine, and they asked for X amount of ransom, and we all put money together. They were giving somebody who would take the ransom to the kidnapper at designated point. When the guy came back, he said he went through not one, not two, 3 military checkpoints to get to the kidnapper's den. Now, what he now said was that at each checkpoint, he had to settle. And he was afraid that, look, the kidnappers will count the money and found that it's less than the amount
they asked for.
It could cause problem. He said he was told, just tell them we've taken our own. He got to the kidnappers then. They counted the money, true. It was less. I don't want to go to the number, certain amount. And he just told them that, look, is it people at the checkpoint that collected? And they said, okay, no problem. But our guy was eventually released after the payment was made. But the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that the industry is vast. There are lots of people who are benefiting from that. Who knows whether those people at the checkpoint got the equivalent of their 10-year salary from just that transaction? Do you expect them to now say, oh, no more kidnapping? So, but the point here is this. It can be stopped if there is a decisive move from the top. The people at the bottom have no choice about this.
So you're compelled to do the right thing.
Exactly. You'll be compelled to do the right thing if the push from the top is this is how this is going to happen. And I mean, we have a situation where, for example, in the 2021, the House of Reps did a security summit. And one of the recommendations there was how fifth columnists and moles exist within our security services. Yes. And it was recommended then that what we call integrity testing, I don't want to go into technicalities of it, that's a way of finding out who the moles are. We rolled it out. This report was submitted to the president, President Buhari. Till today, nothing was done about it.
I think Ayo has a few questions for you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kayla. Let me begin with Mr. Ononugu, and I'm sure that he has comments also. Mr. Ononugu, I'm sure you have comments about what you've heard Mr. Modi, talk about as well. But let's be a little more practical. The previous administration, the former president, Buhari, said at one of the various presidential chats or interviews that he had with the press, and one of the things that he said was that, look, a particular governor came to him to ask for this or that, particularly concerning insecurity. and he said he sent that governor back. I think it was in the governor of Benue State at the time. Said he sent the governor back to go and deal with this problem. So when we hear, and of course, going by what Mr. Mole was saying, that the president needs to display a kind of body language, I'm wondering, first of all, whether you agree with him, and secondly, whether or not the governors have a significant responsibility in this, because we say all insecurity is local, yet we always call on the federal government.
Well, you're correct. Governors have a very serious role to play in checking insecurity because it happens locally. Federal government is an office, but the states own the space, and for the spaces they occupy, they have enough security reports from the security agencies to understand the activities of certain groups of people or individuals within their domain. And what they needed with the federal government is just collaboration so that relevant agencies could be deployed to support them in checkmating the activities of criminals. But again, you will find out that some of the local threats that breed the bigger news, the governors might not have their hands totally clean because they're products of political activities that often accommodate the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they have their mind that they want to remain politically relevant. And part of the constituents they often want to accommodate and manage are troublemakers, they call them, and lawbreakers. They feel that they could best be managed in ways that are best known to them, rather than using constitutional platforms to deal with their lawlessness and end their impunities. So this becomes the challenge. So I often don't get sucked in by the things that politicians do with the media, because like one author said, politicians think about the next elections when leaders think about the next generation. And I think the shortage of these leaders has been our greatest challenge. If we have leaders who want a society that we have peace, harmony, and progress, their body language will show that. The governors, as they are presently, not many of them have clean sheets. Many have a history of political careerism, which means that all that they know and all that they have as credentials are their activities as politicians, aiding and abetting political activities, organizing how to rig elections, and evolving over time to become the stars of the game. Such leaders are never going to give us peace and security because there are chains of people they have shortchanged over time. Those people are at war with them. So the local crises we often see are coming from this history of people that have been shortchanged, people that have been witch hunted with every opportunity and power they had in their hands, people that feel that they've not been fairly treated in deals and agreements, or they've not been accommodated, they were not given
Mr.
appointment based on their contribution. So these are some of the issues affecting the capacity of the governors to be able to effectively deal with insecurity.
But then
they can only discuss. Yes, Ayo, go ahead.
Well, the issues you have raised seem like they're not supposed to be excuses. As the president often says, they applied for the job. They knew what the problems were. And it's also ironic, as you said, that when elections are approaching, it would seem as if insecurity is suspended. All of this banditry, kidnapping, insurgency are suspended. But then as soon as they settle into office, it will seem like these things, resurface. What do you make of it? Because even the CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, has said at one or two interviews that we've had with him that, look, the military will do what the military will do, but politicians have to do what politicians have to do. We have seen pictures of governors, sitting governors, in cahoots, so to speak, with some of these so-called insurgents. There is a governor, former Governor El Rufai, said on television in front of journalists once that governors in the Northwest, I think, well, maybe even across the North at the time, stopped doing what they would normally have done in order to curtail the issues of insecurity in their region. So are we saying, remotely or directly, that governors or state governments or state officials, whether at the federal or state levels, are the ones fomenting or fueling these insecurity issues we are talking about?
Obviously, we can't come out to tell you that they're the ones, otherwise they will come after you. I hope you know that. However, just recently, a few days back, the governor of Kaduna State came public to say, look, he had to reach an understanding with the bandits and terrorists for him to be able to achieve peace in his state. Now, when you look at that, it sounds reasonable, it's logical. But the morality of what he has done is that he has technically endorsed and recognized criminals. They will now begin to start privileges to constitutional platform and allow the criminal justice administration system to deal with their conducts, not a politician. So for the convenience of the politician, he saw no reason why he should go after criminals and fight them, because it's expensive, it's costing him more, and he sees the shortcut is negotiate, have a truce with them, and they coexist with them. Now, mind you that these people do not have alternative jobs. They have no alternative businesses. So how long this truce and understanding will last will be determined by what the government is able to spend to keep them and keep them in the kind of life and current, the quality of life they are already living with their, benefits of their banditry and terrorism. That's one. They also have causes they were pursuing. This is a very worrisome dimension to fighting crime. And he came public, it's a media knowledge that he had done this. So other areas will also be looking forward to having such arrangements. If that is going to succeed in Kaduna, then they will take the template to apply in their places. On the other side, I also see that because the security system has been pushed and compromised, has been hijacked, we have failed to provide due diligence services in the process that produces leaders in this country. What do I mean by this? There's a provision for anybody vying for public office to have what we call security clearance. During this process, it is expected that persons of no clearly defined means, credentials, productive activities that can be reconciled with their status and aspirations are eliminated from the process. They are disqualified through security vetting. Now, when this system does not produce the required results, you will find out that when they are compromised, because often they are also victims. These are people who are not well paid. Their loyalty to the country has also been weakened, and the transactional ideas have sunk in the system. You see people who are public servants, they are billionaires, director generals, they own properties. Both the cumulative salaries and benefits they've acquired in public service. Nobody queries them.
So these are the issues that I would say.
Aspirants.
Yeah, these are the issues. Just a second. This is the issues that one is wondering whether or not all of the authority levels are looking at. Mr. Mole, what are your thoughts on this perspective? I mean, you've spoken largely to what the military has been doing, what the police needs to do, and all of that. And this question is for Mr. Mole in Abuja. So where do we go from here? Do you agree? Because to a large extent, the contention still holds that state governments have a significant role to play, because all insecurity, all crime, all unrest is local. Consequently, they need to be addressed accordingly. What is your take?
Well, I mean, I think the state governors have a lot to answer for here. I think it was the former Inspector General of Police, Al-Khali, that actually, at a speech a couple of years back, mentioned that we have over, he said based on police data, we have over 70 non-state actor groups, armed groups in Nigeria. And a lot of these non-state actor armed groups were set up by state governors. Some of these armed groups work in, hand in hand with the official security agencies, some don't. So when you have a plethora of armed groups across a society like that, that's a recipe for the confusion we are seeing now. And if you talk, for example, take the issue of...
Mr. Mole, if you can hear me, my sincere apologies. There's this breaking news that we need to quickly bring to the viewer. The Nigeria police has filed a notice of discontinuance in the alleged defamation suit filed by the Inspector General of Police against Lagos-based legal practitioner and author Dele Farotimi. Channels Television cited the notice of discontinuance dated January 29th, which was filed pursuant to Section 108, Sub 1 and 2A of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, and which seeks to withdraw the charge pending against Mr. Farotimi at the Federal High Court, Ado-Ekiti. The notice, which was signed by the Police Inspector Samson Osubu, also disclosed that the police will be asking the court to strike out the charge following the desire of the nominal complainant, Areafe Babala, to discontinue the case after the intervention of well-meaning Nigerians. As at the time of writing this report, parties to the suit have gathered at the Federal High Court, Ado-Ekiti, and the prosecution has served the notice on the defendant's counsel in court. The judge is, however, yet to sit to formally strike out the charge. Of course, we'll bring you more details as the day unfolds. Mr. Mole, please go ahead.
Yes, so the point I was trying to make is the fact that there are too many players in our security space. And once you arm a group of people to do what official security agencies should do, then you have a situation where you can, once the genie is out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. So you have too many. So the governors do have, but that actually is not the excuse. The point here is that with the right strategy, and I don't want to go into the strategy publicly here because the government do have access to those strategies. With the right strategies and with the right technical people in place, we can bring down insecurity in this country. We must not underestimate the need for a more effectively funded police. I mean, the money, the funding, if the police have received just 10% of the kind of funding the military have received in the last 10 years, they've been in much better shape than they are today. So the government need to, like I said, remember the first thing I said when I started was that there are countries on earth that do not have military. But there is no country on the face of the earth that do not have police.
I want to be able to get your thoughts on something because we are running out of time. The concept of negotiating with insurgents or bandits or kidnappers, we see that in many ways, many political leaders are a bit divided on how that should be done. Is that something as a security expert that you think can help negotiating with these terrorists?
Well, even the Americans will say we don't negotiate with terrorists, but we know they do. I mean, the issue is, I think it's not either or. The idea here is that in very protracted cases, you might need to negotiate, but you also have to have examples of you actually using kinetic force to liberate all the hostages. But I think the problem we have in Nigeria here, I think it's almost 100% negotiation or 99% negotiation all the time. And again, that's part of the problem. I don't want to, go into under the last administration how even that became an industry, in itself. So, but the issue is, yes, on some occasions you might have to negotiate, but one thing is quite clear. What is the sense in negotiating every 3 months with the same group of kidnappers, kidnapping different people? I mean, you are more or less establishing their business. So which means if I'm in charge and negotiate with you once that negotiation is over and I take the hostages back, I will make sure you completely dealt with. You are not in a position to kidnap anybody after that. Yeah. But that doesn't happen.
Let me talk to Mr. Alfred here about something else. The reintegration program that we see happening in the Northwest, where terrorists are handing in their arms and there's a reintegration, bringing them into society. What are your thoughts on that? Is that working?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You see, the process is not professionally being handled. And I must say that for the security establishments, we must make ready and get our minds ready to deal with ethnic and religious bigotry in the services. We must eliminate them completely so that state interests can be served by these agencies. The idea of recycling criminals who vanish, no proper checks, no control, they are admitted in the system, they are made to feel like they are the victims rather than the predators, and that's not working. That doesn't make any security sense. And evidences have shown that that idea has not worked. Not even in the Niger Delta. Nowhere. If you don't deal with criminals, you make them the lords of the kingdoms, and that's very dangerous. And the military and the security establishments generally,
yes,
as quickly as possible.
Okay, well, that would be a good place to couch things. Mr. Alfred Ononubo, forensic investigator and criminal intelligence specialist, CEO, Bell Protocol and Security Support Services Limited, and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria. Thank you so much for being with us on the program, and good luck with all you have ahead of you.
Thank you very much.
And Dr. Charles Omole, lawyer and national security expert, the Director General of the Institute for Police and Security Policy Research, IPSPR. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Business Morning is up next. When we come back, we'll be talking about the health sector and what Trump is doing to affect Nigeria's health sector. So please stay with us. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. It's business for just about 30 minutes before you head back to Kayla and Ayo on the Sunrise studio. So now let's start from the global space. Oil prices steadied on Wednesday as investors weigh the impact of potential U.S. tariffs. Once again, we're talking about tariffs, this time focusing on the Canadian and Mexican imports, while largely shrugging off an increase in the U.S. weekly crude inventory. Look at the numbers for this morning. It's not so different from what perhaps you saw at the close or towards the close of trade yesterday. It's down 0.2%, losing just about 2 cents
at $77.20. You can say largely yesterday we saw it around $77. That's for Brent. WTI, however, is on the flip side. I'm sure a lot of activities going on around United States crude, and so we see it at $73.81 after it went up 0.1%. Benchmarks fell to multi-week lows early this week as news of surging interest in Chinese startup. Remember, DeepSeek moving a lot of markets for 2 days now. That low-cost artificial intelligence prompted concerns over energy demand to power data centers, rattling the overall energy sector, while weak economic data from China further soared the demand outlook. U.S. President Donald Trump still plans to issue 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico on Saturday, while weighing fresh tariffs on China. It's a tariff regime, we're saying. Well, Trump did not immediately impose those tariffs as he had earlier planned, but said that he was thinking about imposing 25% duties on imports from Canada and Mexico from next week, February 1. Well, I think that's on Saturday, over illegal immigrants and the crossing into the United States. Now, we look at the Naira and see how that's doing, because there's the launch of the FX code. That's an initiative by the central bank to enhance trust and confidence among both domestic and international investors in Nigeria. So we see the CBN continuously putting in efforts, introducing new ways and new things and policies and platforms to help stabilize the Naira and win more confidence of investors on the Naira and block leakages. And we've seen, some movement or some positive recorded on that. So for NFM at the close of trade yesterday, there was no number available because of some of the changes, the code we just talked about. Or for NFX, we saw an increase. And of course, CBN, in between all of this, we do see how we will hope to see how it will affect the Naira today. So we only had for NAFEX, but we know that the major official platform is NFM, but we do not have a number available at the close of it. And of course, CBN, we don't have. But we see that the Naira is still around 1,005, below 1,600. Even though in the parallel market, we could say it's about 1,600 as at the close of trade yesterday. And talking about the Central Bank of Nigeria, we see that they have approved the waiver of the 2025 license renewal fee for existing bureau de change, that's the BDCs. The CBN, which made this known in the statement, says that the directive is part of ongoing efforts to implement the new regulatory structure for BDC operations. It notes that BDC operators who have already paid the 2025 renewal fee are advised to apply for a refund. The Apex Bank reaffirms its commitment to promote transparency and efficiency in the foreign exchange market while ensuring compliance with the revised regulatory framework. I know the BDCs. There was success recorded yesterday in Tanzania. 30 African heads of state and government have committed to concrete reforms and actions to expand access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity to power economic growth. They are also promising to improve quality of life and drive job creation across the continent. The leaders pledged their commitment in a declaration during a 2-day Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit in Tanzania and commercial capital Dar es Salaam. Mission 300 partners pledged more than $50 billion in support of increasing energy access across Africa. The Dar es Salaam Energy Declaration represents the energy gap on the continent, where more than 600 million people currently live without electricity. The commitments in the declaration are a critical piece of the Mission 300 initiative, which is supposed to unite governments, development banks, partners, philanthropists, and the private sector to connect 300 million Africans to electricity by 2030. The declaration will now be submitted to the African Union Summit in February for adoption. Well, from that, we see President Bola Tinubu has promised to achieve universal energy access for Nigerians by the same 2030, with renewable energy contributing half of that, 50%, to the national energy mix. He made this commitment at that event in Tanzania, that's the Energy Summit. President Tinubu outlined plans to expand electricity access, provide clean cooking solutions for millions, and attract investments in renewable energy to meet the nation's goal. The Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit brought together African heads of states, and we saw them there making commitment earlier. Now, after over a week since the Nigerian Communications Commission approved a 50% tariff hike for telecommunication companies, the Chief Executive Officer of MTN Nigeria, Dr. Carl Toriola, says that the implementation has not yet been approved. Dr. Toriola, who made this known during an interview with Channels Television in Lagos, also said that their proposal has been sent to the regulator.
The headlines for the approval were around the overarching tariff increase as approved by the minister. Now we've made our submissions to the NCC. They will go through submissions. They've been going through them in thorough detail to ensure that it's fair to consumers, that no one has an undue competitive advantage, and it will be approved in short order. And we're really being held to task by the authorities on this. With improved cash flow as a result of tariff increases, gives us the ability to invest, first of all, in a constant supply of diesel and ensuring our sites are kept up. Second is in expanding our network in areas where we have congestion. And third is in putting redundancy into place as well as customer management systems. So we're expected by the authorities to do that within a matter of months. And if we don't, we'll be held to account by them.
Well, telecommunications right there, and still awaiting. So if you have seen any difference in your charges, it's not the telcos. That's what they say. They're still waiting for a final approval to their products, proposed products, by the NCC. Now let's talk about something that's obviously very important to us. We will not be discussing it if it wasn't important, and that's housing. We've talked about how the real estate has overtaken the oil and gas sector, being the third largest in the country, talking about the GDP, contribution to the GDP. But I guess a lot of people will not be concerned about that until they can have affordable access to housing. And we've been talking about how that can be done. Well, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, they now have the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund, and it's towards having affordable housing in the country. Let's talk about their plans on how they want to achieve this with Mr. Lubi Adekunbi. Mr. Adekunbi is from ARM. He's the head ARM investment managers. Good morning, Mr. Adekunbi, and thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. So we now have we've heard of Ministry of Finance Incorporated. I was supposed to manage like the investments and business transactions of the ministry of the country.
Yes.
Now they now have a real estate investment fund.
Yes.
Well, I know you're from ARM. We'll get to that, but could you tell us what this is about? This MOFI investment fund.
Okay, so the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund is a transformative initiative by the federal government of Nigeria aimed at addressing the housing deficit issue in the country. The implementation of the fund, is led by the strategic guidance of the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wali Edo. And the fund is positioned to address the housing deficits from two perspectives, from the supply end and the demand end. From the demand perspective, it's intended to provide low-cost, long-term mortgages to intending homeowners, and then to provide, on the supply side, to provide offtake guarantees to developers to ensure that they have the right credit enhancements to approach commercial banks in raising construction finance for the development of residential homes.
Okay, so help us to understand that approaching commercial banks, to raise finance. What does that mean, really?
Yeah. Okay, so if you're familiar with the housing market currently, most developers tend to sell their properties off plan. thereby selling units to people before they go into construction. And what happens in that instance is, because of rising inflation, those developers are unable to meet up with the demand of those who have made those payments because they do not have the sufficient funding. What the offtake guarantee does is it gives comfort to the commercial banks to be able to release funding to the developers without them having to make commitments to home buyers, right? And what that does is they get the adequate funding to complete construction, thereby making the properties ready on time, and they can sell at the market prices without them having to incur undue losses.
Okay, so are we saying that the government is coming to facilitate developers accessing funds through commercial banks for development? Is that
Absolutely, that's correct. Through the offtake guarantee program. So what that does is an agreement will be signed with the MRIF, that's the MOFI, Ministry of Finance, Real Estate Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund. And with that agreement, the banks, the developers are able to go to the commercial banks to raise the required funding.
Yeah, but I do know that the essence of this is affordable houses.
Yes.
Does this make it affordable? Because commercial banks will still charge high interest rates.
Yes. I mean, so the primary objective of the fund is to provide low-cost mortgages, which is at 12%, right? Currently, if you approach any commercial banks for mortgages, you are going to get a rate that is closer to 30%. So at 12%, it's significantly lower than half of what you will get from a commercial bank. But on the offtake guarantee end, what it does is developers are able to construct the residential properties within reasonable time, and the compounding effect of interest, if they don't have that guarantee to be able to repay the commercial banks ahead of time, also impacts the value of houses in the long run.
So is this fund already working? Is it going to be launched? Is it already available? Can people access it?
Yes, so the fund is a 1 trillion naira program being rolled out in phases. The Series 1 is the federal government's commitment through the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, which is 150 billion, and the commitment from MOFI has been received in that regard. The fund is currently in the process of raising its Series 2 issuance, which is seeking to raise up to 100 billion, subject to the Security and Exchange Commission's approval, and it's expected that the fund will go live in February.
That's next week.
Absolutely.
So who can qualify for this? How do they, reach out? How do they get
Yes, so the MRIF is available for every Nigerian, and what we've done is we've created platforms for well-meaning Nigerians who want to participate in the fund to either go through the website, which is the
don't worry to be displayed. You just go ahead.
Yes, so there are different channels which are being displayed for those who are willing to participate in the program to make their inquiries and see more information on the fund. Okay,
so I see that's an email. So you just send an email to say you're interested.
So it's a form.
There's a WhatsApp.
A form,
I also saw a WhatsApp and then a website. So
yes, so inquiries can be made. So the website provides access to information on the fund, and then there's an inquiry form where those who are interested can express their interest, and as the fund goes live, they would have access to the properties that they can access for the mortgages.
So is there a type of property you say is affordable? Is it a 2-bed, 3-bed, a duplex?
So I mean, the provided that it falls within the available housing, the mortgage rates, the mortgage facilities that will
qualifies for, is that it?
Yes, absolutely. So from the estimates and from the research we've done and inquiries we've received, we see that the properties that will be made available or that people are interested in ranges between 1 to 3 bed, and these properties range between 45 to 60 million thereabouts.
And that's what people can qualify for, because you have to qualify. I think your age has to be taken into consideration. Yes. Your monthly or annual earning has to be taken into consideration.
Yes. Yes. So the income, part of the requirements for home buyers to qualify include their income, right? They have to be Nigerians. So the fund is for Nigerians in Nigeria, right? And to people in the diaspora, Nigerians in the diaspora can also apply. They also need to have So for those who also want to use their RSA balance for equity contribution, they need to have a valid RSA account for that, and that the fund provides for them to be able to access their RSA for the mortgages.
So I'm sure for a lot of Nigerians who are watching, I mean, I'm a Nigerian, so I can tell you that when you hear things like this coming from the government, you're like, oh, don't mind them, it's their thing.
Absolutely.
It's going to be for their people.
Yes.
Because of issues of bureaucracy and who do you know, which button can you press, and
Absolutely.
all of that, how can Nigerians be assured that anybody who qualifies can actually go for this?
So as much as the fund is sponsored by the federal government, it's going to be completely private sector driven. Right, and the governance and operational structures. So the funds will be disbursed through commercial banks, right? The value chain, the private sector is completely involved. Our role
That's where ARM
comes in. Our role as fund manager is to ensure that happens. And we've defined a well-structured governance and operational framework, which has passed through all the different levels of the fund, and is currently being implemented to ensure that the objectives of the fund are met, in meeting the home ownership initiative that the federal government is looking to achieve.
So, Olubi, are you saying I know you now? I cannot cut, I cannot cut some processes and just get into this one?
Absolutely not. You go through the process.
Okay, so what's the duration of the processing? Because mortgages these days they take years to process. Yeah. What's the timeline? What's the time limit that people can expect?
So what we've done is to create a platform that streamlines all the processes, from the eligibility assessments for the individuals who want to access the mortgages. We already have a platform that has well over 2,000 housing units that people can apply for. We are also making provisions for the application of the RSA balance on the platform and the eventual application for the mortgages. So it's going to be a streamlined process. So without having to go through different parties or taking forms to different sites, it's going to be an online and seamless process that we estimate will take within 30 days to complete the process.
30 days, about 1 month.
Absolutely.
Nigerians are listening. Somebody can just hop in. I mean, you have your information scrolling, you have your WhatsApp and everything. So if I start this process today, which is the 29th, I should expect that, okay, we have February, maybe by the 1st of March.
30 days, absolutely.
I would know.
Provided that all required information and documentation is accurate.
That's the provided. Okay, that's the information, Nigerians. Yes. That's the website, that's the email. And Olubi here from ARM, it's not channel, says within 30 days, you should be able to know your position if you apply for this, and there's no man.
Absolutely, it's a fair process for all Nigerians.
Okay, I mean, if this is being kept, I'm sure it will be a pleasant one, even though the funding, and the requirement is still a major one, because when you talk about 45 million and all of that, and then I think you're supposed to do equity of 30%.
20%.
Oh, 20%. Now, how many people can really afford that? At the end of the day, but I guess it is what it is. Housing materials, building materials are really expensive.
Cost of construction, yes.
Cost of construction is also there. We're importing most of our materials,
Absolutely.
Which is not a plus for anybody at all, Absolutely. Especially in things like this. But anyways, thank you so much, Mr. Olubi Adekunbi, for your time. We'll certainly be following up. I'm going to send a message after this and see how long it takes. All right, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yes.
All right, so yes, that's housing, obviously very important for everybody. The other thing that seems to be on every conversation now is AI. And say AI rules the world with the risks that come with it. But let's see how we can even apply, perhaps talking to ARM there, AI can help us maybe apply and find out if I can qualify for it. Well, let's talk to the country manager at Zoho, Nigeria, Kehinde Ogundare, joins us right here in the studio. Talk about how AI is changing lives and can make my life better. Hi, Kehinde, good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we just finished the summit in Davos, and AI was top conversation.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but sometimes you just wonder if Nigeria is right for it, but they say, according to statistics, that the machine learning market in Nigeria is projected to reach 0.57 billion this year, yes. 2025, an annual growth rate of 34.6%,
yes,
resulting in a market volume of about 2.52 billion by 2030.
Yes.
Well, this is on paper. How real is this? Does this look, especially when you say that machine learning market in Nigeria should be valued about 0.57 billion this year, 2025?
It's very much possible. First of all, you have to understand that this is 2025, and a lot of businesses don't do business as usual. You need to find a way to adopt technology, and AI will significantly improve your efficiency. Now, when you talk from efficiency standpoint, people will see that you'll be able to do more, cover more ground, reach out to your customer, personalize their experience. You know, because I was telling somebody recently that in 2025, people are more concerned about their experience at a particular store than the good itself. You know, the experience and everything, and you'll be able to manage that and optimize that with AI in 2025. So yes, it is very much possible.
And there's this conversation that a lot of people are even using AI without knowing they're using. For instance, if you stay a lot on the computer,
yes,
now you have information just popping out at you. You want to write, they're telling you we can help you do this,
yes,
and all of that. And all that, of course, is supposed to make life and work easier and, as you said, more efficient.
Yes, at my company at Zoho, we believe that the best application of AI is when you don't know you are using AI. You know, because the AI is a buzzword. Everybody wants AI, but a lot of businesses today are currently using AI without them using it. When it comes to your sales management, they will tell you the right time to call your customer, the best time to send quotes. You know, they help you optimize that. They help you create data, make sense of that data, and then you can use that data to actually target your audience without you using it. So yes, and that is the best approach to using AI when you don't know you are using AI currently.
Yeah, but the risk, their fears, I don't know if that fear is still there, about unemployment it will create. And all that. I think that's for individuals who refuse to upgrade. I just have that notion, because human beings will write the program.
Yes.
Human beings will operate whatever machine, computer that has to be operated.
Yes, and also human beings, we are going to evolve. When you talk about efficiency, I use a particular example. Maybe 50 years ago, 70 years ago, we don't have calculators. People need to do the Roman numerals, I don't know what they call it again, you know. And now we have to evolve, start doing calculations that is above mathematics that you have to write down. So AI has come to keep you in line with what the new trend is all about. So it might not take your job, it will help you improve on how you deliver your job. Now, as human beings, you have to now evolve. You know, we have more time to focus on the business, to innovate. Like you said, you'll be at the back end instructing the AI to do a particular task for you. So it's not going to take your job completely.
But talking about that evolution,
yes,
that is needed for humans, and the realities of Nigeria, network, internet, electricity,
yes,
these are realities.
Yes.
And so sometimes it does make it look like when we talk about AI, it's just for the elites, you know, and not for the larger population who are not elites in the country.
When you look at the AI convention perspective in particular, the first thing you need to understand is that it's for everybody, right? You will probably need to write a document. You probably need to chat your customer. You probably need to engage in a particular activity or the other. AI is for everybody. But from the business standpoint, right, everybody in today's market is currently using AI without them knowing they are using AI. So because you're selling on social media, you have to send email to your customers, you are using AI without you knowing. Right, you have a particular tool you're using for your email marketing. How do you aggregate that data? How do you know that your email was delivered? How do you know your customer opened the email? How do you engage them to buy more from you? You know, you just click a button, and then you get the results. You don't know this is AI at the back end powering all these things. So AI is for everybody, and the faster we adopt it, the better for everybody.
Yeah, but what will make me happier as a person is if we can domesticate a lot of these things. Whether it's the software, whether it's the hardware, because this is employment we're looking at, and the more demand we place on this thing, the more we're improving another economy. We're just talking of what's that deep thing? Not deep fake, the one that China just introduced that's causing a war between China and US because it's cheaper, you know. But all of these things will DeepSeek, you know. Unfortunately, these things will have to be importing them. How much of it are we making ourselves, whether you're talking about the software or the hardware?
So I think the government is doing a great job in trying to sensitize people and also encourage people to go into that AI manufacturing and production in this country. I believe recently I saw an interview from the minister, Boson Tijani, where he said he wants to empower people and wants to localize these things. So these are things in progress. Right? We need to work. It's a process. We need to just get to that point, infrastructure-wise. We need to improve our infrastructure. We need to improve on that significantly. Then access to internet and digitalization in this country is still a little bit low. We need to get a lot of people online. We need to get them on the internet, get them access and devices that they can use to implement all these things. So we'll get there eventually. But I think we're on the right course, the right path to being independent of any foreign
Well, I hope
countries.
this 50% hike on tariff, will not discourage people, even though the telcos are promising us it will help them improve their earnings, their infrastructure, and better quality, which is at the foundation of all the AI conversations that we have.
Yes, I think from the business standpoint, it's very important. Currently, the economy in Nigeria is not really looking great. Inflation rate is at all-time high, so they need to improve that. And because we also demand from those people to give us better internet, better network, better coverage, so I think it's not going to deter anybody. In fact, I think we've seen an increase in internet users in the last 2 years, more than before. People are getting to understand that there is no way you can be analog and be updated. So you have to be online on your mobile phone, on your computer, and everything. So I don't think it will be a problem in our movement.
But we have the problem of data privacy and data protection. That's a big one for us.
Yes. So Data Privacy and Data Protection Act was enacted 2 years ago, 2023, I believe. And I think it's very fantastic. It was modeled against the GDPR we have in Europe. So I think we just need to find a way to enforce that. And I also feel like a lot of businesses are also sensitizing their customers to let them know the importance of data privacy, data security. So it's porous, but then when, as an individual, it is a responsibility to take care of your data, to make sure that you are not overly exposing yourself on the internet.
Yeah, well, we always discuss all those little ways, change your password or make it come on, even though those things are not so.
Two-factor authenticator, for example.
Two-factor authenticator and all of that.
Yeah.
But we'll keep on talking about it and hope that more people, will get into the fold of the internet and all of that. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Kehinde Ogundare, Country Manager at Zoho Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
All right, so just before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio, just tell you that market was negative yesterday. Since the previous session positive, then profit taking came on and 0.44% in the red is what we had, and then we lost the 104,000 level, closed at 103,958.75, equity at 64.156 trillion naira, and the activity chart was mostly green, only deals were in red, but deals are looking so much these days. 15,000 plus is what we had yesterday. Banking, well, interesting counter, we know that is very liquid, but yesterday they were in the negative, except oil and gas. Oil and gas was the only, I think Aradel had great movement yesterday and drove that oil and gas counter to the positive. Top trades were from the financial, the Fugas, the big guys there, Access Sterling, Sterling is not part of Fugas, and then Zenith Bank, but that's it. That was the top trade for yesterday. The financial is always the top. 1 p.m. Ladi will be here. I'll also be here to give you intraday market numbers, not from the NGX today, but right here from the studio. That's 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. I'm John Mekwa. Talk to you later.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Well, our next conversation is about health, as Kayla highlighted earlier. The United States government has instructed organizations in other countries. So stop disbursing HIV funding, HIV purchased medications with US aid, even if the drugs themselves have already been obtained and are sitting in local clinics. What we make of all of that, we'll have conversations with two gentlemen this morning. But let me begin with Dr. Andrew Ume, who is a specialist family physician and occupational medicine practitioner. He is CEO of the Dr. A.E. Ume Medical Center, joins us from Middlesbrough in South Africa. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning, Doc.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, Dr. Badi Dr. Awoshika Begepan will be joining us shortly as well. But let me pick your brain. First of all, what's your take? The first slap, so to speak, jolt of the world is the President of the United States announcing that the United States was pulling out of the World Health Organization. And of course, there's been reactions as to how shocking that has been. And now this. What's your take? What's your impression?
All right. Good morning to you and your viewers. My name is Dr. Ume. I'm happy to join you here from Middleburg in South Africa. It is quite shocking to hear the recent development in terms of funding and aid package to all the countries that the United States has been supporting in terms of treatment for HIV, malaria, TB, contraception, as well as maternal and child healthcare services. But before we actually go on, it is important that we know exactly what services and aid the US aid is assisting, so that we can appreciate the consequence of the action taken by the new administration of President Donald Trump. The United States Agency for International Development has been assisting a lot of countries in terms of the treatment of HIV, health promotion and prevention, as well as carrying out research that enhances how they go on with the services they are providing. So when it comes to health, HIV prevention and promotion, it is important to know that in every country where they operate, they engage with the government, with non-governmental organizations, with private establishments, where they roll out campaigns in terms of teaching people the health implication of HIV and how to prevent it, and also supplying medication to those who are already living with HIV and taking care of those who are already afflicted with the disease, and also enabling and assisting those in the research sector to enable them to continue to carry out research that will help to improve the management of HIV. So, if this aid comes to a stop, it means that these services that is being rendered all across the world will automatically come to a stop.
It will seem like, just a second, Dr. May, it will seem like already, I mean, that train has already moved, because the funding has been stopped. Let me ask Dr. Awoshika here with us. Dr. Bayode Awoshika is MD Medin specialist, is convener Market Impact Conference. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you again for seeing you.
Did you see this coming, this stoppage of HIV treatment funding in Nigeria?
Sincerely, I think I saw it coming. I think it's time for Africans and developing countries to get themselves together. I will look at this from a different perspective entirely. HIV was first discovered in America in May 1981 in America. The first time HIV was found in African soil was in Uganda in 1982. That's about a year after. HIV was not found in Nigeria until about 1985 and 1986. And sincerely, America came into, and then after it got to Africa, it's like wildfire. They raided the whole of South Africa, South Africa, Zambia, some of those countries.
Essentially, Nigeria is 40 years old.
It's about 40 years old. You know, and there was something that was established by the American government, what they call PEPFAR. This is President Emergency Plan for AIDS relief. And they were working with USAID, and they had pumped a lot of money into it. They spent almost $100 billion into it, specifically for Nigeria, about 7.8 billion. And they've been doing over the years. Nigeria has established what we call NECA, this is National Agency on the Control of AIDS. And so America has been doing its own bit. In fact, actually this PEPFAR is one of the best of America. To me, it's one of, everybody praised them for doing it because it was, a lot of money was spent and a lot of effort. Like the doctor said, the whole purpose of it was to take care of the people with HIV AIDS, to prevent it, and to supply drugs. Over the years, they have been doing it. As of today, I think there are about 1.8 million of Nigerians still having AIDS, having issues of AIDS. Nigeria is the fourth in the world with this burden of AIDS. How long are we going to wait for other nations of the world to keep helping us to solve our problems? Because when I heard it, I laughed. I said, shock waves. I said, yes, fine, because a time has to come when African countries will need to wake up. I was trying to do a little study yesterday, and I just discovered that the ordinary drugs used for AIDS are not produced in Nigeria. They make arrangements. Is it that we cannot produce it? Is it that we cannot seek for license to produce it? So I think, yeah, it's a shock wave. But, like I look at it like when it happens with COVID. When COVID came, people thought that they would have a skin sickness that they can just run somewhere. Then everywhere was locked. A time has come. I'm talking like a Nigerian and another statesman in Nigeria, not because I've been in this for quite some time. A time has come when we need to sit down and sort ourselves out. Trump says American first. And the man is doing everything that concerns him as American first. The unfortunate thing is there's a global village. That's why I said that the first aid that was recorded was in May 1981 in America. And then they discovered next one in Uganda, East Africa, and then obviously South Africa came into it, and it was all over. So you see, if they decided to stop, people still move around. Do they think that if you stop this and there is a breakdown, America can be isolated from it?
No. But Dr. Bayodi, the challenge there would be, Dr. Awushika, the challenge there would be, are we ready for it? Are we ready for the consequences? If you saw it coming, I assume, if you saw it coming, I assume that the federal government would probably have suspected as well that this is likely to happen.
Yeah.
So, are we ready for the consequences?
Do we have a choice? You see, it's not even been ready. The whole thing is thrown on our faces now. And there are so many things he's doing, and I think there will be more shock waves. So the whole thing here is this. We need to sit down. We have people managing our Ministry of Health. These are international people. They've been outside the country. They know how this thing works. We can do it if we are determined. You see, this whole idea of one money coming from somewhere and then we use it to solve our problem just have to stop. I was just talking about COVID. From the time of COVID until now, if you can imagine the number of new hospitals that have cropped up in Lagos. New hospitals with very sophisticated equipment. Because why? Suddenly realize that there will be another time where you cannot get out of your country and you are locked in and you have to take care of your people. You know, so it's unfortunate. I believe that maybe probably there will be a rethink on part of government, but as far as I'm concerned, I believe that it is just a sign to tell us that come, you take care of yourself. And you see, I think yesterday was 28th of January, for 22 years, this PEPFAR, this President Emergency Program for AIDS, has been in existence. In fact, the last I heard was that by 2030, they were thinking that this burden of AIDS the health burden of AIDS will be dramatically reduced over the world. Just 2030 is about 5 years. And you see, it's going to be a credit to America if it is done.
Let me ask, Dr. Ome, one of the concerns anyone would have, and I don't know if it's a personnel issue as opposed to resources issue now. It's coming at a time when a good number of people want to get out of Nigeria, particularly medical practitioners. The chief medical directors in Nigerian hospitals have said that, look, in 2 years, if we're not careful, there will be no medical practitioner in any hospital in the country anymore. And here we are, one major, as you said, area of funding for a critical international illness or debacle is being cut. And Dr. Awoshika is saying we need to wake up and smell the coffee. Do you think we are ready? Talking in terms of personnel at a time when medical practitioners are leaving the country in droves.
Yeah, I want to agree with my colleague, Dr. Awoshika. It's quite unfortunate that despite all the assistance that we've gotten from the United States over the years, we expect that African countries will be in a position to sit up and try to cover the loopholes. But it's quite unfortunate that African countries are not yet ready to take up that mantle of leadership and continue to manage these situations as we see it. It's not only in the area of HIV/AIDS, it also involves malaria and TB. They assist a lot of patients in terms of getting medication to stay alive and also to help in reducing the spread of this, some of these infectious diseases. So with these shortcomings, I'm afraid that a lot of patients will suffer unless the government drastically come up with a relief plan to help people get access to their medication and also to put measures in place to encourage our doctors to stay back and assist the community.
I mean, Dr. Ome, it's interesting that you're reaching us from South Africa. There's a research, Dr. Ome, that says basically that if PEPFAR were to end, as many as 600,000 lives will be lost over the next decade in South Africa alone. And that's for South Africa that even has the means to care for a lot of its vulnerables. Poorer countries may even see worse. The former chief of staff of PEPFAR during the Biden administration, Mr. Jira Ratevosa, he actually basically talked about how the domino effect of these policies of President Donald Trump would have far-reaching impact on the health systems, especially in countries with large populations like Nigeria and of course in South Africa, and of course poorer populations across the continent. Now, the conversation we'll be having this morning is about looking inwards. Let's start looking at what we do inside of us. What should instead of looking at what Donald Trump is doing, because in fairness, Republicans have been campaigning against PEPFAR for a very long time. And the reason why they've been campaigning against it is because they believe it promotes abortions. They had been saying this for many years. So now that we're talking about looking inwards, in your view, as someone who's in this field, what should governments, at least governments in Africa and in Nigeria and in South Africa as well, what should they be doing to adjust to this new reality?
Yeah, I think the government need to sit up now. They need to be able to enlighten the community about these conditions, provide resources for people to be able to continue to get access to their medications. And time for handout is gone. So for now, I think every country has to take that initiative, allocate more resources to the health sector so that some of these measures can continue. Otherwise, just like you said, a lot of people, we're going to lose a lot of patients once they stop getting their medications that keep them alive. So the government in Africa need to sit up and allocate more resources and train health personnel that will be able to come into the field and continue to play the role that will enable our patients to live happily and survive.
Let me come back to Dr. Awosika, because listening to everything that's happened in the past few days, like I stated earlier, it does seem like it is time to look inwards. Time for us to so get your act together. You're not going to be getting money from anywhere. Some people may have issues with it, but for many people, this is an opportunity. And any smart government, Mr. Awosika, Dr. Awosika, any smart government should start to look in that direction, of how they can take care of their own population themselves. In your view, with everything that's happening, the truth is this money is not coming anymore. These fundings are not coming. It's not going to come anymore. The man has said he doesn't want to do it anymore. So what should we be doing to adjust to the situation in your view?
Thank you very much. I think we need to get our priorities together. We have the manpower. The present Minister of Health is an international person. He's worked in international organizations. And, we just have to get our priorities right. I have always said that, unfortunately, health has never been the priority of an average Nigerian, not talk of government. There's a lot that the government has to do. The first thing to do is to make sure that everything that the people living on HIV, living with HIV, the 1.8 million body that we have, the supply of their drugs must not stop. I say must. There are various treatments, there are various investigations they need to do, must not stop. You see, we cannot portray our nation as a helpless nation. We are not helpless. We spend money also all other things. We bid roads every day. We send billions. It's just the problem is this health thing. And I think this year there's a bit of an improvement in the budget for national budget for health. I think we need to do more. And it's a wake-up call. That's what I say. Because when I saw it, when I heard about it, I was silently excited. Because, see, a time has to come when a nation have to really rediscover himself. We cannot continue to live on AIDS and live on help. And basic things we can do for our people, we cannot do. It is not right. Our insurance policy had to be improved for health services. A lot of things have to be improved. The doctors that are moving away every day, I have a hospital. It is almost impossible to keep them. These young boys, I look at them and compare with when I qualified 47 years ago. It's almost becoming a taboo to become a doctor because it's just tough. These are areas that government has to look into. And our doctors go out there, they do extremely well. It's the same doctor they are using all over the world that are performing the miracle, and they are not. We cannot use them here. So I don't want to continue to repeat myself. Government has to wake up. We can do it, whether they stop it or not. We can do it. But the thing is that we must not. There must not be a failure of continuity of the treatment of these people, because if it gets to jail, they are gone, and then people are dying. So many of them are doing extremely well now. Their city count, the city fall is virtually reduced. They are doing extremely well. They are living their normal life, and then because they are using their drugs, then if you get to your clinic tomorrow and find that the drugs are not available, it should be a shame to the country.
Just a quick one before we wrap. Do you see it being returned after 90 days?
I think it can. It's not impossible. You see, because like I said,
will that be good? Would that be a good thing? Do you think Nigeria has the capacity to buckle up now and hit the...
I believe we can. I believe we can. And you see, if America decide to return it, is credit to them. Because like I said, we're looking at that by 2030, the burden of AIDS should actually be reduced, and the credit will go to America. So if they decide to do it, fine. But if they don't do it, we should be able to survive.
Okay. Well, I have to thank you very much this morning. As you said, it's a wake-up call, a jolt of energy. Let's hope that government and everyone who should, take the gauntlet, just as you've suggested. Dr. Olubayade Awoshika is Medical Director of Medin Specialists, this convener Market Impact Conference. And we've also had virtually Dr. Andrew Ume, who is a specialist family physician and occupational medicine practitioner, CEO of Dr. A.E. Ume Medical Center in South Africa. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here this morning.
Yeah, you.
And that's the show this morning. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
I'm Kayla Magwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.